Why did you decide to start house hacking instead of flipping houses?
Yeah, so I was flipping houses obviously for a while, and my personality is always has always been like geared towards the long term. There's something about it that attracts me to long term solid investments. And I was listening to people at the time that were talking a lot about the potential of a crash again, and of course that never came, but they were just talking about sound money, and I was really attracted to the ideas of sound money, and we're flipping houses, nothing wrong with it. But it is ultimately the ultimate greater fool theory. You have to be able to find somebody that is willing to pay more and more and more until the greater fool runs out, like it did in 2008. And not that that's necessarily going to come again, but the margins were relatively thin. And I just there was something about it. And I was reading a book. I can't remember which one it was, but it was Brandon Turner's book from Bigger Pockets. And he had mentioned the 203K loan, which for people who aren't familiar with it, it's a renovation loan. It's the extension of FHA. And it was another one of those like aha moments that I had to where I can actually flipping experience and turn it into also a buy and hold, but where I actually add massive amount of value. And so even though I only bring 3.5% down for an FHA, I can ultimately, have 20, 30, or 40% equity by the time I get done with it because I'm massively rehabbing this place and adding a ton of value. So that's exactly what I did. I believe by the time that I got done with it, we had like 36 or 37% equity in the place. So 3.5% down. We did about I think a $60,000 rehab. Ultimately, it was a three unit, and I turned it into a 4 unit. So I took because of, like I said, that previous experience with a mentor who taught me that you can actually value add. I saw this one car garage, which to begin with, I mean, and of course, Drew, you've been to that property. I mean, you could never really get a car into it because it was like it was off to the side. Like, I mean, even a small car would have had a challenge to get in there. And so ultimately, it was basically just like you have your lawnmower in there and things like that. And I remember walking into it for the first time and thinking, because there was a 12 by 12 storage room off to the side of it too. I just had this moment where like I could turn this into a one bed, one bath. And so that's what I did. And I had to do that with my own money because of the red tape within the FHA. But everything else was being rehabbed. I did the majority of the one bath. I also hired contractors. We had about 5 or 6 different contractors in there doing things at a different time, and just massively added value to it. And while I lived there, we were making, if I remember correctly, like close to $1,000 a month while I lived there because I was living in this one bed. And so I was making money while I lived in this house hack. Ultimately, I did, I chose not to do like the Burr concept, like a lot of people talk about, where you rehab it and then you pull money out, just because the interest rate was going to be so much higher. And I just felt like leaving that money in there on my first deal was a sounder choice. So we left that money in there. We still, but we refinanced to a conventional, so it dropped the PMI and lowered my interest rate, lowered my payment. And and knowing that I wanted to build something big, I wanted to lay the right foundation and not maximize my debt, my debt to my loan to value on the property. And so the next deal was sort of unique in the fact that I didn't, I was in the middle of this rehab and I was kind of extending myself as far as the kind of funds that I had. But a deal came up, and it actually happened to be this mentor that I talked about. He had a duplex on the other side of town, and it was going to be a much better situation. My wife and I were getting married. It was side by side. It was almost kind of like a luxury house hack because everything was separate. It had a big backyard. It didn't feel as much like we were house hacking as a 4 unit. So, but I didn't have the money for the down payment. He wanted 35,000. It ended up being 40,000. But he wanted 35,000 so he could take this and start a retail expansion to one of his commercial buildings. And I didn't have the money, so I ended up getting private money to fund the initial down payment. And I end up negotiating a 10-month 0% interest, zero payments for that property, which was super unique. I said, hey, I'll give you your purchase price. I'll give you the down payment. You just allow me to stay here for no interest and no payments for that time period until I can get conventional financing. So over that time period, we add a little bit of value to the property. And ultimately, I came in with 0% down because when we got the conventional mortgage, I was able to pay off him and then pay off my private money and not bring any personal money to the table at closing. So it was super awesome in that way. It was unique. We started out living on the smaller side, which is a 1-bed, 1-bath, and so we were living for free at that point. And then ultimately, my wife wanted to move to the other side, which is larger. And so we moved over to the other side, and now we're about negative 350. But it's a lot better. I mean, we have an office now. My wife is pregnant, so we have a room for a baby, so we can still continue to house hack. And ultimately, now that we're kind of in a luxury situation, now we're buying properties as traditional investors. So it's allowed us to continue to purchase property, stay in the same location. So I'm not uprooting my family now. But it allows us to save a ton of money from what we would be paying either renting or paying a mortgage on a single family property. And it's been another fantastic property for us.